I love when coaches, consultants, and professional service providers want to do big things in their business. They want to rise to the top and influence their market and the world around them. They want to have a greater impact and make a more lucrative income. Well, if this is you, welcome to Expert in You podcast, the show where I interview other experts and coaches, consultants, so that they can share their success strategies with you. We're going to talk about marketing and how to close more sales, how to get more premium clients, and how to really build your visibility in the market and scale your business like a boss. If this is you, welcome to the show. I want to ask you to subscribe and hit the notification bell right now so you don't miss one episode. Grab your coffee and buckle up because we are ready to give it all to you to help you become the expert and get paid as the expert that you are. Hi everyone, it's Carden here, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Expert in You podcast. And I can't tell you how excited I am for my guest today, Jen Grosso. She is truly an expert in confidence. She's a high performance coach, and she has a company called Bold Fire Institute. And just the name, right, should tell you this show is going to be fire. So Jen, welcome to my show.
Oh, thank you, Anne. I am so grateful to be here and to be able to speak with your audience today. Thank you. And yes, it will be fire. I always bring the fire.
I know. I only have people on that bring the fire. So I love it. So I know she's going to bring a lot to you all today, and I'm excited to have her here. So Jen, we are just going to jump in, and I want you to tell people a little bit of your backstory and your journey, and then what got you into doing what you are doing today.
Yes, I am originally a big law attorney. I worked for big law firms, and I was a litigator. I litigated cases that involved product liability for pharmaceutical companies and even airlines. And I also did very large cases for financial services institutions. And I found myself, as a very young attorney, I found myself hidden behind boxes and deep in documents, but then in courtrooms. And while that was fun work and I loved that work, the most meaningful work I did while I was in the law firm was actually mentoring people who were coming in, younger associates, going back to my law school, mentoring them. And that started that initial phase of coaching. I didn't even know it could be a profession for me at the time, but developing talent from the inside was an incredible start for me. And then I moved on eventually.
And how long ago was that, Jen?
So my last year in the big law firm was in 2005. And then I continued on in the law where I was a prosecutor for attorneys' ethics complaints. I taught law at Montclair State University in their graduate program. And I also worked part-time as an attorney, as counsel for a number of years, including when I was starting my coaching business.
What an amazing background. And, I love when experts get into the coaching space or the consulting space because they have so much to bring to the world in such a different way. I bet this was quite a shift for you, though, going from stress and all of the negative kind of things that you dealt with into all of a sudden this really positive type of mentoring. Is that right, or is that accurate?
It's absolutely accurate, especially because I was in litigation, which is often litigation is contentious. And I learned, and I did quite well. I could play that game for sure. And I found that it wasn't where, even though I could be effective as a litigator and I did very well at my job, it wasn't rewarding. It was not feeding my soul in the way that I wanted. And I was on the search for something else. And so, like I said, internally, I found it there. And then as my trajectory was changing, I said I was a teacher and as a professor in the university setting, I started to learn that there were pieces of my professional journey that I could piece together and create something new for myself. And towards the end of my work as a litigator in the big law firms, I also became a silent partner in a real estate brokerage. So I had a business degree before law school, and that was my first entree into entrepreneurship. And it was with partners, and it involved strategy and evaluation of what was going on. And I got to see what that was like on the inside. And so that seed was planted. It was really interesting to see how this diverse background all came together for me in such a beautiful way.
All of those skills, all of that knowledge is transferable, right? Into something new. It's really how all of my businesses started along the way. It's like I just transferred the skills and the knowledge and experience. So I love it. Wow, what a story. I mean, that's amazing. So I bet that you have seen a big difference in, getting the degree and working inside of other people's businesses and that type of thing, and then taking the leap to be an entrepreneur yourself and to go into this for yourself. What are the differences there? I think it's interesting for people to kind of see what those differences are.
Oh, there are a number of differences, and even they really become highlighted when you're trying to make that shift from employee to entrepreneur. And yes, absolutely. The employee mindset is very difficult to get out of.
Yes.
And especially it became, because of my background, I was always interested in how can I create a business for myself that is more of an asset. I didn't want to be tied to the business where it was, I had purchased myself a job.
Yes.
In a way. I wanted to create something for myself that would not only have impact and include work that I loved, but would also be set up and have a foundation that it could expand and scale beyond me.
Yes.
And so I could create a valuable asset. And there was another business that I owned that was a gym. Mm-hmm. And when I owned the gym, that too was another one that gave me quite a bit of experience in managing teams and figuring out how could we set up processes and systems that would allow me to be an owner, but not be in the day-to-day operations on a regular basis. And I could remove myself and be much more of a visionary leader in that role. And I wanted to do that for myself as a coach and consultant as well, as I was moving through the whole process.
I love it. No, I mean, I don't know if we even talked about this, but I've sold 5 businesses that I built. So I am a big believer in building turnkey systems and having a team. I was running 4 at one time during the recession. So you can't do that unless you have built great people under you and processes and systems and all of those things. So I love that you're talking about this. Yes, it's important. And a lot of people, I think, get into their coaching business and they don't really think bigger, like or any kind of business, even as an entrepreneur. A lot of times they think about really creating a job for themselves and an income. They're thinking about only an income, and they're not really thinking about something like you said that really can be an asset or can run without them, and they can keep growing and expanding that opportunity.
And for some people, one of the first conversations I have with clients is, let's assess what it is. What is your actual goal? What is your vision for your life? What do you want? Because what you do and the foundations that you put in place, it really depends. Do you want a lifestyle business or do you want to have something that scales to a legacy that you really find? They involve very different strategies and monumentally different mindsets that need to be managed throughout, and both are fun in different ways.
Right. And they are very different. And I think that's a really important point, because a lot of times people don't go in with a vision. They're just thinking about an income, right? And so what happens, and this actually happened with me when I started, I was running around into businesses and coaching them and helping them. And I quickly realized, this isn't the life I want. This is not what I want to be doing. And I quickly made a shift to go online and do everything virtually. And I had to learn a lot of new skills and all of that. And so it's really important when you are starting your business, because for me, I had to change everything when I made that decision to go virtual versus being local and live. And I wanted to go global. And if you're not thinking about these things ahead of time, you end up a lot of times with a business that has to be completely almost torn down and rebuilt. And, and it's not like all of that's been wasted, but you can make faster leaps when you really have that vision and you know where you're trying to go.
No question. I remember one of the reasons that I wanted to leave the law is that I felt like I was trapped in golden handcuffs. I had an incredibly excellent compensation package. There was prestige. There was a lot involved, but I felt very shackled to the position. And that what you're describing is exactly what happened to me as well. I ended up creating a business for myself where I thought, oh, wow, I have voluntarily put the golden handcuff back on. And again, that was shifting. That was because that was my expertise, my experience. That was what I knew what to do. And that's when I started to sit down and vision for myself. What is it that I really want? Getting really in touch with what my core values were, what was important to me, and what I wanted my day-to-day life to look like, both in the current season that I was in because my children were younger, but then how I wanted to be able to dial that up over time and expand as the seasons of my life changed. And that was really useful. So every year, we didn't talk about this, but every year I do a visioneering event, and I encourage all of my clients and those individuals that are in my network to come and to re-envision. I think it's something that we should be revisiting and looking at on a regular basis. And it's one of my most enjoyable and most exciting things that I do for my.
Yes, that's fun to get them to look at the goals.
Absolutely. No question.
Well, I love that we are talking about goals and vision, and that definitely is the first step. So Jen, who do you work with specifically?
I work in two realms specifically. I work with business owners who are seasoned business owners. They have an established business. It's already successful. It's a proven service. It's usually a service-based business. It may have some product elements to it, but they're service-based business owners, and they usually have teams, and they have reached a plateau where the business owner or owners, they're working way too much in their business. And I come in and I can help them make their teams much more effective. And also there's a lot of work to be done with that particular owner to get them to stop micromanaging, to get them to develop confidence, not only in themselves to release their grip, but also to build their confidence within their team members so that they have the systems and processes and they know how to run with and make decisions so that the business can run much more smoothly. I also work directly with high-level executives as well. And when I'm working with high-level executives, I'm primarily working with them around their confidence and their mindset so that they can become much more effective and break through any blocks that are impacting their ability to perform at the highest levels. And for both of those subsets, for the executives and for the founders, the owners, one of the very important aspects of what I coach them on, and an important part of their foundation, is radical self-care, and how paying attention to our well-being has such a significant impact on our mindset and our ability to perform at these highest levels of business that they're operating at. And it makes a huge difference when I bring all of that together, when I bring together the mind, the body, and the business all together. And I love it. It's much more effective. Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that with my audience. So Jen, let's talk about maybe a big aha that you had when you were building your business, or maybe even some of the ahas that your clients have, either or both.
Let's see. The biggest aha that I had was that it didn't matter I could have the very best strategy on the planet that I knew for sure would work with a business owner, but they would not be able to pull it off or execute it if their mindset was an issue, and in particular, if their confidence was an issue. And so I really started to see this as early as, or I really started to pick up on it as early as about 2012 in my business. So pretty early on in the first year and a half of my business. And I remember thinking, wow, these really amazing high performers have some real issues with limiting mindsets and limiting beliefs and blocks. And also, many of them are struggling with their confidence. People who, when I saw them on the outside, I was a little bit stunned. And it became something that was important to demystify, that even the highest performers sometimes feel like an imposter or are plagued with issues like perfectionism that are really rooted in lacking full confidence in a particular area. And what I realized was how valuable and how important it was to address those issues first. If we don't address those mindset issues right out of the gate, and throughout, as they come up throughout the coaching and consulting process, it can have a very significant effect on the actual results that they'll achieve. And for me personally, the irony was that I wasn't certain it would be seen as valuable, and that if I was leading with mindset and confidence, so this was years back before it became something that was more commonly spoken about, that it might not be deemed valuable. And so I was feeling my own sense of imposter syndrome. And
that's interesting. I was actually going to ask you, do you think a lot of times they identify that they lack confidence? Do you think, there's a lot of, let's face it, there's a lot of ego in business, right? Especially when people get to a certain level of success. They just don't respond the same way as people who are just beginning. And so I guess my question is, do they identify that they have a confidence issue? And then how likely are they to reach out as a result of that? Because you do have the whole ego thing. So how do you get around that?
So they know that something is wrong, but they're not eager to share what's wrong. And so they often tell me, like many people, they lead with what's great, what's amazing. They often lead with various items on their resume, what their accomplishments are, how great the business is doing. And during a first meeting, during a first consultation, before we've even signed the client, I learned early on that it was important for me to be able to throw in a little bit of a tough love zinger question in there and see how they responded to it. And if they were,
will you share?
Sure. I'll share a particular story. It was funny because I was an attorney and because I was in big law, and I even clerked for the New Jersey Supreme Court. So I had a prestigious resume. So often when I work with lawyers who are also business owners, they'll start sharing with me all of their accomplishments and where they work, because they want me to be impressed. And I will sit back and I'll smile and I'll nod. And I remember with one, they were expanding into this new business and they were buying into this new business. And she told me about how she was one of the youngest partners at her firm. And she said, and I'm hoping that all of, my credentials are going to help me as I move forward into this new role. And I said, it won't. Nobody cares.
That's a hard thing for people to hear. No one cares about you. Right.
It won't. Nobody cares. And I sat back and I smiled, and she did a reaction to it. And she sat back and she later on told me that was one of the reasons. She knew I would tell her the truth. And I do believe that many of them are hiring coaches and consultants because they know that they could be better. And they want someone who they can trust to become vulnerable with over time. I recognize, though, that takes a little bit of time. Even if I've developed enough trust for them to hire me, how far they can go is really developed in the way that we engage during our first couple of sessions. And then I find that they tell me the full truth. They reveal. They're almost relieved to be able to tell the truth that these are my problems, especially when there are solutions, that so many of the mindset blocks and the confidence blocks are solvable with neuroscience backed proven tools and things that they can practice that can improve their performance significantly over time.
Absolutely. And, I can't even imagine years ago when I was running my businesses, what it would have been like to have a coach to get me through a lot of the hard times. And I always, even in high level positions, people don't have anyone that they can count on or to really talk to and to really help them navigate the problems and the challenges and the hurdles. Because if a lot of times their spouse doesn't understand, their family doesn't understand, like they really are alone at the top of the mountain.
Absolutely.
And they are
at the top.
And so, how long can you do that by yourself? Right. And I remember, when I was running a lot of businesses, I often felt that way, even though I counted on my employees and my staff and my team to be a part of the business, and I welcomed their input and all of that. I was still alone until I finally hired my first coach, which was why I became one, because it was so life-changing and so business changing. So I love that you're talking about this.
Having that objective advice, that objective sounding board is huge. And I think that my skills as an attorney, where I was always looking for blind spots in cases and trying to find those points, it makes me an expert at doing that for these individuals as well. And that's something that makes me very unique.
The whole interrogation thing, I can totally see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I don't let them get away with it. And they know it.
I love it. I love it. No, and I think that's so valuable. And it's kind of like, when people come in, you uncover other things that they need that a lot of times they didn't even really realize it was confidence, or they didn't even really realize that it was imposter syndrome maybe, or they thought they had this other problem. And then as you start working with them, all of these other things come to the surface. And that is how a coaching relationship works. I know a lot of times people come to me for one thing, they think this is their problem. And I'm like, but you don't have this in place, and you need this and you need this. It's never just one thing. It's just not.
Right. And you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And you need someone to highlight that for you. And I think when you are in that very high level, that yes, we need to find out, yes, it's your mindset that's blocking you. And then even when you look at the mindset, but then you look at the strategy, there might be one tiny detail in the strategy that needs tweaking.
And I love that you do both. I think that's really key, that you do both of those things.
I do. And I think that's born out of the fact that I started really as and what I called myself was a strategic growth expert for businesses. Right. And so I started with the strategy, and I absolutely had to add in the mindset and the confidence and the wellness piece as well. And that's become even more important in the last couple of years, where taking care of our wellness is
right, with the whole pandemic and all. Oh gosh, yes, it's definitely changed things for sure.
To manage those stress levels, because it's not only lonely at the top, it's also quite stressful.
Yes.
And the entire reason that most people seek out, or many people who seek out those top positions and seek out owning their own business, is because they do. Yes, they want a very successful business. They want to be successful in their careers, but they also want a life that they love. Even the ones who are very ego driven and want to win, they still want to love their life. They still want,
they want to be happy. And yes.
Right. They still want a bit more of the balance, and they want some time for that. And I think it's really fun and exciting to be able to celebrate with my clients when they're able to do those types of things. One of my favorite clients, she had multi-million-dollar business. It was in the pet industry. And we worked together for a year to really work on her mindset, to release to her. She had a huge team in place already, but she really needed to get herself out of being so in the business.
Right.
Her and her husband were able to leave and go on a yoga retreat for 3 weeks.
That's awesome. Yes.
And that was a life-changing trip, and it was wonderful for their relationship. And it was that. So sometimes the results aren't necessarily, I want to 10X the business.
Right. They're not always financial. No. And especially, it's so important too, that when you get to a certain level and, your business is rolling and it's going and things are, really doing well. Now you really do have to take a step back and say, okay, am I happy? What did I do all of this for? Is this the life that I want? I am so much about freedom and a lifestyle type of business, which is, why I have the type of business that I do, because I've done all that hustle and grind and all of that, not had vacations. And I did all of those things for many years. And business is an opportunity to build your wealth and build your happiness and really have a life that's beyond having a job and working for someone else, in my opinion. So why not? You can have it all, right?
You can. Absolutely. And I do very firmly believe, especially as we were talking about going from the employee mindset to the business owner mindset, that if you have been in that place where you've really been in the mindset of hustle and grind to get there, you do need some assistance to make it to that next level mindset where you can bring in more of that joy and release yourself from what you knew. It's very often some of that is just habitual. That's right. What you know how to do. And so having the guidance, having a mentor who can walk you through and you can have that support as you are learning to operate in your executive position, in your business in a different way.
But, you talk about the whole confidence thing. Trust is a huge issue as well, because how many times do people not want to let go of control? I think you mentioned that in the very beginning of the podcast. And when you don't let go of control, that means now you have to stay in the midst of everything. There is no stepping back. Right. There is no taking time. And so you have to put in the processes and the systems and things like that so that you can manage those and then you can trust people to carry those things out and really execute the things that need to be done. So,
and that can take some time depending upon how in depth the standard operating procedures are.
Right.
Also, really taking a look at and having great communication with the people who will be running with and making the decisions and being charged with executing on various plans. You need to make sure that they have everything they need to be able to do that without having to come back in and check in.
Right.
So that not only do you have trust and confidence in what they're doing, but they have trust and confidence that they have enough information that they will be supported if they make a decision in a particular area. Even if this is very simplified, but you don't need to check with anyone if you are making a decision that is to have an expenditure of less than $20,000.
Right.
Or depending upon what the business is and what the role is and all of that kind of thing. We want to empower the employees to be able to run with what they've been charged to do. And that is why confidence isn't something that is simple as, like a soup, your superimposed kind of confidence. We love all of those. That's the bumper sticker psychology version of confidence, but confidence is so much more layered and complex than is often discussed. And that's the place that I come from. That's the expertise that
it's also at the subconscious level. And I think
no question.
Yes. And so you bring that all into the conscious level where they can now see what those things are that have to change and have to be different.
So a fun fact about me, if I didn't go down the lawyer route and I didn't go down this route, one of the other things that I was obsessed with as a young person was science. And I even won the science fair when I was in high school, my senior year in high school, for physics. So I was a bit of a nerd. I just loved it. And that has continued on. And it's why so much of my research went into the neuroscience behind developing confidence, and what are these mindset blocks, and is it woo woo, or what is it? What can we do? And I'm always so curious and obsessed with what are they finding is working today, and how. For me, it's fun. It's almost like moving pieces around a board. Okay, and each person is different because of their background, because of whatever was created for them in their subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you're not reading the romance novels, you're reading the science novels.
I am.
Well, I'm that way. People say, well, what do you like to read? I say business, marketing, sales books. Like that is my thing. Leadership. Those are the things that it's fun to me. It's enjoyable. It's even relaxing.
I think there's nothing here that's fun for
right. I'm like, really? Why would I waste my time on that?
I love it, and I can't get enough of it. I even have a lot of magazines that I get on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of you being an attorney, the only fun books that I read is I am a huge John Grisham fan. So I have read every book, and I wait for his next book. But outside of that, and I just fell in love with his writing many, many years ago. But outside of that, I don't pick up any other kind of books, which is just crazy. But thinking about you being an attorney, of course.
Yeah. I was obsessed with John Grisham when I was in college. Yes. And I went to law school, and my love affair with lawyer novels and lawyer TV shows and movies, it diminished. I sometimes
probably
sometimes introduce myself as a recovering lawyer. So it served me well, and it was a great profession, but it's definitely not how I like to I've spent enough time in that area. So my fun books are actually with my kids. They were the Harry Potter.
Oh, you're a Harry Potter
which fan. Are so different from your science books, your business-based books, and your personal and professional development books. But
I love it. That's great.
I will still pick them up. The one that I'm reading right now is by Dr. Daniel Amen, and it's about your brain and what goes on with your brain, and how your hormones impact your brain, and how your brain type really affects your thinking and your mindset. It's really a fascinating.
Do you know the name of it? I love to share.
Yes, I will. I have it right
here. So
let's
see, we've pitched John Grisham, and now we're going to pitch Dr. Daniel
J.K. Rowling. Yeah. So it's You Happier.
I love it.
And you can see it's Dr. Daniel Amen.
Okay.
And I became interested in his work after I had a pretty significant accident. I fell down a full flight of stairs, and I had a very serious head injury. And I was very lucky. I feel very blessed. I remember when they took me in the trauma center. I had a full body CAT scan. They thought I might have broken my neck. And I really got out of that entire scenario quite well. But I did have a significant concussion that gave me post-concussive syndrome. And he has done a tremendous amount of work with the NFL and on concussions, and has helped really spearhead quite a bit of more awareness about how head injuries can impact you and your health long term. And that was something that took me down an entirely different path and had me looking at mindset even in a very different way. And I
hear a whole nother podcast in the works there. I think we could.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh my goodness. We could talk for a long time.
We could.
Oh, that's wow. Well, I'm so grateful that you are okay, and that you are, oh my goodness, what a story.
Yes.
It's crazy when you really learn people's things that have happened, and people have crazy stories. Yes. So.
And it's wonderful to be able to share them, because even when something goes wrong and looks like it could have a serious impact, there's always solutions.
Oh, I love that.
There's always solutions. It often involves getting support outside of yourself, finding, and because I'm who I am and I'm such a researcher, I was determined to figure it out and not settle for pain and some of the issues that I was experiencing. I had debilitating headaches for a long time. I wanted to be there for my mother, my family, my children, and I wanted to be the best business person that I could be. And with that kind of impact.
Well, you're doing that. So you are living up to those expectations for yourself. So thank you for sharing that story. That is, just the fact that you have thrived and excelled and that you really do have the expertise in how you are helping people and impacting other people. It's really inspirational. So thank you for sharing that. Yes. So Jen, anything else that you would like to share? Maybe just a couple of tips that you would like to share with the audience, or even to people that might see this, that might want to reach out to you and work with you. What are some things that you would just like to share before we wrap this up?
I would love to share the importance of really sitting down with yourself and assessing what your core values are, and even of seeking out assistance in finding what your core values are, because they have such an impact on your overall ability to lead as an executive or as a business owner. And I find that there's an awful lot of talk these days about burnout.
Yes.
And people are burning out. And I believe that is one of the hidden reasons that people are in burnout, because they are operating and performing and executing and functioning in a way that is not aligned with their core values. Sometimes the burnout it can't be solved from something like meditation or taking a spa day or something along those lines. It's that can be part of it. Taking care of yourself, treating yourself well can be part of it, but also looking at what are the hidden factors behind that, including, are you acting in accordance with your core values? When you aren't, it also has a significant impact on your mindset, and it also diminishes your confidence. And so it becomes this spiral that goes down.
I actually want to dig into this a little bit, because I remember when I really kind of discovered this for myself in my own coaching business, when the clients I was working with, and we maybe even had this conversation, I knew that they were at a level where I didn't get to fully utilize my expertise. And so I wasn't feeling fulfilled, and I wasn't feeling like this just isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. But I didn't really understand the whole alignment thing. And when I learned that, and I talk about that, it sounds a little woo-woo to people, right?
It does.
There's so much truth to that. I love that you're talking about this, because when things are just not flowing, and again, you just know something's off. You just know something doesn't feel right. It feels like you're pushing a boulder up a hill all the time, because things just don't feel. And really, alignment is the only way to really describe that, I think. So I love that you're bringing this up.
It's that inner gut feeling, that inner knowing that something is off. And at its worst, taken to its worst, the worst case scenario, when you're operating for a long time outside of your alignment, your body starts to let you know this isn't working for you.
Right.
And you may experience even physical symptoms of I'm doing the wrong thing. So we were talking about alignment and core values. And what you will find is that people often have, like I was saying, you'll have a physical manifestation of symptoms that are signals of where your body's had enough.
Yes.
And your body has had enough of you operating in a way that's not consistent with who you are. And I'll use myself as an example. And I remember joking around with partners one day as I went to get probably my fourth or my fifth cup of coffee, which was also an issue for the day. It was not a healthy move at all, that level of caffeine. But I knew when I was in the law firm that I wasn't doing, even though I was good at it, something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that it wasn't the work that I was meant to do. And that's that misalignment. And what started to happen to me is I started to have quite a bit of anxiety. And it wouldn't be anxiety that you might expect, like going into a courtroom on a big case. It would be anxiety I would experience sitting at a lunch with my peers. And I would feel, I would also see, I started to get an eye twitch, which might have been also part of the coffee as well. But I remember walking and a bunch of partners saw me and they said, "How are things going?" And I said, "Well, my eye twitch is back. So that's fun." And everyone laughed and joked around. And then everyone in that room started talking about all of their little things that were going on. And I later learned that those were signals to me. Those were signals to me that what you're doing is not working for you, that this sustained amount of stress doing work that you're good at. So that's really what it's tough. If you're not good at work and it's stressing you out, it's a lot easier to walk away from it. It's much more difficult to walk away from something that's lucrative and you're good at.
Yes.
And not many people are going to understand. How did you go to law school? How did you finish at the top of your class? And now you don't want to be a lawyer anymore? What is happening? There was an awful lot that we could do a whole another show on that.
I see 2 or 3 in the works here.
Sure. Having to respond to others, having this strength of mind and conviction about what I valued was really a huge part of my inner work in the beginning of walking away from that profession and so many people not understanding. I still have it to this day. When are you going to go back to being a lawyer? Now it's no big deal. I handle that very, very well. But in the beginning, it was tough to do.
Right.
But I also knew when I made that decision and I decided to become an entrepreneur, as scary as that was, there was also a huge relief. I knew that even if it wasn't exactly aligned, I was headed in the right direction and I could feel that.
Yes. No, I think that's so true. And I see that in my clients and I see that over and over again when people, when the alignment, when everything gets in alignment, they're excited, they're passionate, there's no stopping them really. And it's a very different place to come from than again, trying to push the boulder up the hill or just accepting it's just tough because, I'm accepting this. I see that a lot of times people don't want to walk away from things that they've spent a lot of time doing, even if it doesn't really feel good to them or it doesn't really light them up because they think, well, this is the way that I need to do it. But often that's just not the case. And so I love that we're talking about that. Oh my goodness. I know we could talk forever.
We could.
But Jen, how can people get a hold of you? Because I know people are going to see this and you are amazing and they're going to see how amazing you are. So how can they reach out to you and get a hold of you?
Well, I would love for anyone to join me over on Facebook. I have an intimate group of high performers that are over there, and we call it the Lab for Mind, Body, and Business Breakthroughs. And I am dropping in tips, and I also have interviews in there as well with various experts that can help people up-level their game. It gives them an opportunity to get to know me even more, get to know how I work. They can get tremendous amount of value for free, but also it can give them an opportunity to see if they'd like to work with me in particular. So I'd love to offer that up. It's called the Lab for Mind, Body, and Business Breakthroughs. I'm sure you'll give them the link.
Yes, the link will be with the show notes for sure. Yes.
Excellent. And if you happen to be somebody who is not on Facebook, I know there are a lot of people who are anti-Facebook these days. It's boldfireinstitute.com is my website. Okay. And anyone can sign up for my newsletter there. And that will let people know when I have various events. I host workshops.
Perfect.
In touch with me. And please just reach out to me.
Perfect. I cannot thank you enough for being on here with me today and sharing your expertise and sharing what it is you do. And you are just phenomenal. And I love your backstory. You're the whole package, Jen. So
thank you. Thank you so much, Anne. I really appreciate. I'm so glad that I met you and that you invited me to be on today.
Here.
It's been a wonderful conversation. I'm looking forward to more in the future.
Well, thank you. Same here. I totally feel the same way. So everyone, reach out to Jen. She is on LinkedIn. She is on Facebook. Get into our Facebook group. We'll have the link with the show notes. And just have a conversation with her if you feel like there is a need in some of the things that she has discussed and talked about today. And she will do her assessing and figure out if it's a good fit for you to work together. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone. You. God bless you. Have an amazing week. And until next week, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this episode, I want to invite you to go check out a free training that I have at expertinu.us. It is a training that I have on how you can get ultra premium dream clients, scale your business, get more freedom, and really simplify your business and multiply your money. So go check that out. And again, that is expertinu.us. I want to thank you for being here with me this week. I hope you found massive value. Please always leave a comment, feedback, or a question. We check them all. And I want you to go rock your business and make sure you join us again next week. God bless you. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.